Um, okay, so I want you to imagine you are a general, right? And you're preparing for this massive, decisive battle.
Okay, I'm with you. Just standing out on the field.
Exactly. You've got your troops lined up, your weapons are completely polished, and you have this, general overarching ambition that you just want to win.
Right, which is great, but
But you are missing something absolutely crucial. You have no map of the terrain
oh
whatsoever.
wow, yeah, that's a problem.
Right. Like you don't know where the hills are or the swamps. You don't know your enemy's actual supply lines. You basically have no idea where the next attack is coming from.
It sounds like a total disaster waiting to happen, to be honest.
Totally.
Yeah.
You are essentially just marching thousands of people into the dark and, I don't know, just hoping for the best.
You're basically crossing your fingers and hoping your raw instincts are just like slightly sharper than the person across the battlefield.
Exactly. And what's wild is that this is exactly what the business landscape looked like before 1980.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of the Wild West.
It was. We are talking about an era where business strategy simply wasn't a science. It was this fragmented collection of case studies, war stories, and just anecdotal advice being passed down in boardrooms.
Right, like pure industry lore.
Yeah. Managers were making these massive company-altering decisions based purely on gut intuition or, whatever the latest management fad happened to be that month.
There was zero structural roadmap. None.
Right. And today, we're pulling from a pretty massive stack of sources for this deep dive to figure out how exactly that changed. We've got an extensive breakdown of Michael Porter's revolutionary 1980 framework, competitive strategy.
Which is just a legendary text.
It really is. We're looking at that alongside modern critiques, case studies, and our own analytical notes.
And this specific text completely transformed the theory and practice of business. I mean, before Porter, leaders were highly reactive.
Just flying by the seat of their pants?
Exactly. They operated as what you'd call intuitive strategists. They were just responding to competitive moves rather than anticipating them, mostly because they believed strategy was an art form.
Right, like you either had the magic touch or you didn't.
Exactly. But then Porter, who, was this young Harvard Business School professor with a heavy background in economics, he asked one vital question.
Which was,
How can a firm achieve a position of sustainable competitive advantage in its industry?
and his answer wasn't just some fluffy advice.
No, not at all. His answer was rigorous. It was deeply grounded in microeconomics, and going back to your analogy, it provided that missing map.
Right. So our mission today is basically to explore how you actually transition from relying on that gut instinct to using a real scientific map to achieve a sustainable advantage.
Because it's relevant for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you are running your own business or you're prepping for a major corporate meeting or, just navigating the competitive landscape of your own career, the stakes are high.
You really need to understand the geography of the battlefield before you swing a sword.
Okay, let's unpack this because the absolute core of Porter's map is this concept called the five forces.
Right, the famous five forces.
Yeah. But instead of just listing them out like a dry textbook, let's try to visualize the economics at play here. I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I want to try an analogy.
Okay, lay on me.
So imagine the overall profitability of your industry is water inside a bucket.
Okay, I like where this is going.
So you're holding this bucket, right?
Yeah.
And you are just trying to keep the water, which is your profit, inside. But there are forces constantly poking holes in your bucket, just draining the water out.
Which is terrifying if you're holding the bucket.
Totally. Now, looking at Porter's model, two of the biggest holes are basically a tug of war over your margins. On one side, you have the bargaining power of suppliers,
Right.
and on the other side, you have the bargaining power of buyers.
That's a highly accurate way to visualize it, honestly. Let's look at the suppliers first.
Yeah, break that down for me.
So, if the people who sell you your raw materials are highly concentrated, meaning, there are only a few of them around, or if their product is highly unique, they hold all the power.
Because you can't just go to someone else.
Exactly. So they can essentially poke a hole in your bucket by raising your input costs or even reducing the quality of what they provide. They are siphoning off your profitability before you even make your final product.
Wow, okay. And the buyers are on the exact opposite side doing the same thing to the final price,
Right,
right?
exactly the same thing.
Because if your customers purchase in massive volumes, or if your product is basically, I don't know, indistinguishable from the next company's, the buyers have all the leverage.
Right. They can just say, well, we'll buy from the other guy unless you drop your price.
Exactly. They demand lower prices or better quality for the same price.
Yeah.
So your margins are just getting squeezed from the bottom by the suppliers and from the top by the buyers.
Precisely. And while that whole tug of war is happening, you still have two other forces acting as these structural threats from the outside.
Right, the next two forces.
Yeah. First, you have the threat of new entrants. If the barriers to entry in your industry are low meaning, like someone doesn't need massive capital or super specialized technology to start competing.
Then anyone can just set up shop.
Exactly. New players will just constantly flood in, and when they enter, they bring new capacity, and they literally compete away your profits.
But if your industry requires, say, massive economies of scale just to even survive, that acts as a plug for that specific hole.
That's exactly it. High barriers to entry act as the plug.
Okay, so then you have the fourth one, the threat of substitute products, which isn't just another competitor, right? That's actually a really important distinction in our notes.
It is, yeah. A lot of people get this wrong. A substitute is an alternative, not a direct clone.
Okay, give me an example.
So if you manufacture premium coffee, a direct competitor is just another coffee brand. But a substitute is an energy drink or, even a caffeine pill.
Oh, I see. It solves the same basic problem for the buyer.
Exactly. The availability of substitute products places a hard, strict ceiling on the prices you can charge. If you raise your premium coffee prices way too high, people just shrug and switch to energy drinks.
So your bucket can literally never hold water above that specific line.
Exactly. The water just spills over.
Which leaves the final force, right? The one just churning the water inside the bucket. The intensity of rivalry among existing competitors.
Yes, the rivalry.
This is the constant aggressive maneuvering, the price wars, the advertising battles between the players who are already in the game. But I actually have to stop here and admit some confusion.
Oh, what's tripping you up?
Because our source material drops this very dense piece of financial jargon right at this point. It says these 5 forces are constantly, quote, reducing the return on capital to the risk-free rate.
Right, yeah. That sounds intense.
It does. Like, what does that actually mean for my theoretical bucket?
Well, what's fascinating here is that Porter is rooting his entire framework in strict financial reality. The risk-free rate essentially means the baseline return you could get by taking absolutely zero risk.
Like what, parking your money in a U.S. Treasury bond?
Exactly. So think about it. If the 5 forces in your industry are so intense that your bucket drains until you are making the exact same return as a completely safe government bond.
Then from an economic standpoint, your business has basically failed.
Right. Because why take on all the stress, the overhead, the sleepless nights, and the sheer risk of running a company if you aren't even beating the risk-free rate?
Oh, yeah. That puts it in incredibly stark terms. So these forces are just relentlessly draining profitability all the time. Is any industry actually safe?
That's the million-dollar question.
Or is competitive strategy really just about, I don't know, finding the least miserable spot on the battlefield and just accepting the leakage?
The underlying economic reality is that no industry is completely insulated. None. Strategy isn't about finding some magical safe haven where these forces just don't exist.
Because that place doesn't exist.
Right. It is about choosing a deliberate position where these specific structural forces will do your firm the least harm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you analyze the map so you can intentionally place your business in a spot where the barriers to entry protect you or, where buyer power is naturally mitigated.
Okay, so once you understand where the structural holes in your bucket actually are, your next move has to be deciding exactly how you're going to patch them.
You have to pick your weapon.
Right. You have to decide how you will actually fight back. And Porter argues there are really only 3 viable generic strategies for defending yourself.
And he categorizes these based on 2 specific dimensions. First, what is your source of competitive advantage? And second, what is the scope of your target market?
Like, are you going broad or are you going narrow?
Exactly. And are you competing on cost or are you competing on uniqueness?
So the first one is overall cost leadership. In this one, you are targeting a broad market, and your entire identity is built around being the absolute lowest cost producer in the whole industry.
Right.
But what I find really interesting in our research is how this actually defends against the 5 forces.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about selling cheap stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's a structural defense.
Exactly. Think of a massive retailer like Walmart or, a tech manufacturer like Early Dell.
Okay.
Their extreme optimization of supply chains and their brutal cost control means they can still extract a profit even if buyers force prices down to levels where competitors would just go bankrupt.
Oh, well, so they can survive the squeeze.
Yes. And their massive scale creates this terrifying barrier to entry for any new competitor. The cost leadership position itself becomes this massive moat.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But the vulnerability there is that someone invents a new manufacturing process and undercuts your cost.
Hmm.
Or maybe your extreme focus on cheapness just completely destroys the quality,
Right, which happens all the time.
which opens the door for the second generic strategy, differentiation. This is also targeting a broad market, but your weapon here is uniqueness. You create something perceived, industry-wide, as uniquely valuable.
Apple is the classic case study here. Or Harley-Davidson.
Oh, Harley is a great example.
Yeah, they defend against the five forces through pure brand loyalty and perceived value.
Yeah.
When a customer strongly prefers a Harley, their price sensitivity drops massively.
Because they just want the Harley.
Yeah.
They don't care if it costs a bit more.
Right. So that reduces the bargaining power of the buyer, and it also completely neutralizes the threat of substitutes. Because to a loyalist, there is no substitute for a Harley.
Right, an electric scooter is not going to cut it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so the third strategy focuses down rather than going broad.
Yeah.
Porter calls it focus.
Yes.
You zoom in on a highly specific target segment, like a particular demographic or really narrow geographic market, and you just serve them better than anyone else.
And within that narrow slice, you still have to choose. You can either be the cost leader or the differentiator for that specific niche.
So, like, if we look at Aldi,
Oh, Aldi is perfect. They execute a cost focus brilliantly. They target a very specific, extremely price-sensitive grocery shopper. They dramatically limit the number of items they stock, which allows them to buy those few items in incredible bulk. That specific tactic actively neutralizes the bargaining power of their suppliers.
because they buy so much of that one thing.
Exactly. On the other hand, on the differentiation side, you have a company like Ducati.
Right, sticking with the motorcycles.
Yeah, they target this tiny slice of high-performance motorcycle enthusiasts. They aren't trying to be transportation for the masses. They just completely dominate their high-end niche.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Porter issues this massive flashing red warning.
Yes, he does.
He says if you try to pursue more than one of these strategies at the exact same time, you end up, quote, stuck in the middle.
The dreaded stuck in the middle.
Right. He argues you'll have absolutely zero competitive advantage because you're trying to be everything to everyone. But I'm looking at the modern critiques in our source stack, and there is heavy, heavy pushback on this.
There really is.
Yeah, a lot of critics argue this is just a false dichotomy. Like, with modern technology and lean manufacturing, can't a firm be both high quality and cost effective today? I mean, don't hybrid strategies exist?
This raises an important question, and the stuck-in-the-middle concept is definitely one of Porter's most hotly debated ideas today.
Yeah, it seems highly contested.
And critics are right that modern technology sometimes allows firms to improve quality while simultaneously lowering costs. However, if we look deeply at the mechanisms of Porter's foundational logic, his core belief holds up remarkably well.
How so?
Because a firm must intentionally choose a cultural identity.
Oh, it's about what the company values on a Tuesday afternoon when nobody is watching.
Exactly. Think about it. Cost leadership requires a cultural obsession with efficiency, standardizing everything, and literal penny pinching.
Right.
Differentiation requires a cultural obsession with innovation, taking design risks, and maintaining a premium perception. Those two cultures are fundamentally at odds within a single organization. Oh, wow. Yeah. If you try to do both, you just end up with constant internal friction.
Exactly. Your cost cutters will veto your innovators, and your innovators will just bloat your costs. Porter's framework demands intentionality over accidental success.
Okay, that makes total sense. So you have to deliberately choose what you are going to be best at and actually commit to the culture that supports it.
Yes.
But defining yourself is only half the exercise, because a pristine strategy is completely useless if you are, blind to who you are swinging your weapon at.
Right, you need a target.
Exactly. So moving from self-analysis to enemy analysis seems critical here.
Sun Tzu famously wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles."
Classic.
Right. And Porter basically formalized that ancient wisdom into a highly structured framework for competitor analysis. The whole goal is to move you away from being an intuitive, reactive manager and turn you into an analytical strategist.
Someone who can forecast an opponent's moves before they even make them.
Okay, so he breaks Knowing your enemy down into 4 specific components. First, future goals. Like, are they trying to maximize short-term cash flow to satisfy impatient investors, or are they willing to bleed money for 5 years just to grab market share?
Right, you need to know what they actually want.
Second, current strategy. What are they actually doing in the market right now? Third, capabilities. What are their real strengths? And maybe more importantly, what are the limits of their resources?
Yeah, where are they weak?
Right. But it's the fourth component that really caught my eye.
Assumptions.
Yes, assumptions. This feels deeply, deeply psychological.
It really is.
It's about figuring out what the competitor believes about themselves and what they believe about the industry. Because this is where you find a company's blind spots.
Exactly. Let's look at an example.
Yeah, let's imagine a legacy camera company just dominating the market in the early 2000s.
Okay, Kodak comes to mind.
Right. If their core assumption is that consumers will always, always value high-resolution, professionally printed photos above all else, they're going to completely ignore a disruptive, low-quality digital camera or a smartphone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that camera company's assumption acts as a pair of blinders. An analytical strategist looks at that legacy competitor, realizes their assumption is tied entirely to physical prints, and immediately knows they won't retaliate against a digital sharing platform.
Right, not until it's much too late.
Exactly. When you deeply understand those 4 components, their goals, their current strategy, their capabilities, and their assumptions, you stop reacting and you start predicting.
And part of predicting behavior is reading what Porter calls market signals.
Yes, reading the tea leaves.
Right. These are the action, the press releases, the sudden price drops, the aggressive capacity expansions that give you clues about their real intentions.
Exactly.
But here's my pushback. Competitors know everyone is watching.
Right.
Like they use bluffs to confuse each other.
Of course they do.
So if a rival announces a massive factory expansion purely to scare me out of entering their territory, how does a leader actually differentiate a genuine market signal from a strategic lie without just guessing?
Well, you don't guess. You test the signal against the structural reality of the firm using game theory.
Okay, how so?
Market signals are basically the medium through which competitors communicate and test each other's resolve. To spot a bluff, an analytical strategist cross-references the public signal with those 4 components we just analyzed.
Walk me through how that actually works in practice. Like on the ground.
Sure. Let's say a competitor publicly announces a massive, super aggressive price cut to drive you out of the market.
Okay, which looks terrifying.
Right. It looks incredibly intimidating. But your analysis shows that their true future goal requires high short-term profitability to pay off a massive debt load. And you know their capabilities are currently stretched thin due to, say, supply chain issues.
Oh, I see.
So that public signal completely contradicts their underlying structural reality. They physically cannot afford a sustained price war. Therefore, it is highly likely a bluff. You cross-examine their words with their constraints.
Oh, wow. You don't listen to what they say, you look at what their structure actually allows them to do. That is brilliant.
It takes the emotion right out of it.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've mapped the terrain with the 5 forces, we've chosen our weapon with the generic strategies, and we know our enemy's blind spots.
We're looking pretty good.
Yeah, but a battlefield doesn't stay static.
Right.
The terrain changes, new weapons are invented, and the forces shift.
Because industries evolve and your strategy has to adapt to the life cycle of your specific environment, Porter actually maps out several generic environments.
Let's go through them.
First, you have an emerging industry. It's newly formed, highly volatile, and just growing rapidly. The overarching strategic priority here is managing immense uncertainty and racing to build market share before the rules solidify.
It's basically like the chaotic childhood of an industry. Everyone is just running around trying to grab territory and figure out what the actual standards are even going to be.
That's a great way to put it. But eventually, you hit the transition to maturity. The massive growth slows down and competition intensifies dramatically.
Right.
So your strategy has to shift away from land grabbing and move toward consolidation, aggressive cost reduction, and ruthlessly defending the market share you already managed to secure.
Like the middle-age phase of a business. You're settling down, optimizing your routines, and trying to be as efficient as possible.
Exactly. And finally, industries can reach a declining phase.
The retirement phase.
Yeah, marked by shrinking consumer demand and overcapacity. The strategic choices here become very, very stark. You either harvest, meaning you maximize your cash flow while minimizing any new investment, basically just writing it out, or you divest and exit the industry entirely before the bucket completely empties.
And what's crucial is that within these evolving environments, competitors don't all behave the same way. The source material talks about this concept of strategic groups.
Right.
These are clusters of firms within the exact same industry that follow similar strategies.
Yeah.
And there are walls between these groups, right?
Yes. Porter calls them mobility barriers.
Right.
Just as there are barriers to entering an industry from the outside, there are barriers preventing a firm from just jumping from one strategic group to another.
So you can't just switch overnight.
No. A company competing on a pure cost leadership strategy can't just wake up one morning and decide to join the luxury, highly differentiated strategic group. The mobility barriers of consumer perception, fundamentally different supply chains, and completely opposed corporate cultures will just stop them cold.
It really is an incredibly comprehensive map. But we do have to address the remaining criticisms in our source stack because no framework is flawless.
Yeah.
Beyond the debate over being stuck in the middle, the heaviest criticism of Porter's work is that it provides a very static analysis. Like, critics argue it gives you a brilliantly detailed, high-resolution photographs of the battlefield. But what leaders actually need today is a live video feed.
Because things move so fast now.
Exactly. To catch disruption as it happens. In an era of rapid, disruptive innovation, industry boundaries just blur overnight.
It's a very fair critique. The five forces model does assume relatively stable industry boundaries, which doesn't always map perfectly to modern digital ecosystems. I mean, today, a software company can suddenly become your biggest competitor in the automotive space.
Right, which Porter couldn't have predicted in 1980.
Right.
And the other major critique is that Porter overemphasizes industry structure while almost completely ignoring execution and organizational culture.
Yeah, the human element.
Right. You can do the math, find the perfect structural position, and map out the exact right generic strategy. But if your corporate culture is toxic, your talent is fleeing, and your troops' actual morale is terrible, you are still going to lose the battle.
This raises a really fundamental debate in business theory. Does structure dictate success, or does management quality dictate success?
And what's the verdict?
Well, the general consensus is that execution and culture are undeniably critical. A brilliantly drawn map doesn't march the troops up the hill.
Right.
However, acknowledging the importance of execution doesn't negate Porter's framework at all. You cannot out-execute a fundamentally flawed structural position over the long term.
Oh, that's a good point.
If you are in a terrible industry with high supplier power, high buyer power, and massive rivalry, even the best management team in the world will eventually get ground down. You really need both. You need the map and you need the morale.
The map and the morale. I love that. So what does this actually mean for you listening right now? The sources outlined a very practical way to apply this, a 30-day strategic mastery plan.
Yes, highly actionable.
Exactly. Whether you are prepping for a boardroom meeting, launching a startup, or even just analyzing your own career path, Porter offers a systematic way out of the dark. So, week 1.
Week 1. Sit down and honestly analyze the five forces acting on your specific situation. Look at the terrain. Where are the leaks in your bucket?
Right. And then week 2.
Week 2. Firmly and intentionally choose your generic strategic positioning. Are you competing on efficiency or are you competing on uniqueness? Pick one.
Pick your weapon. And week 3, analyze your competitors' assumptions to find their blind spots. Yeah. Know the enemy.
Exactly. And finally, week 4. Make your major decisions based on that structural data, completely removing your raw gut instinct from the equation.
It's about abandoning the guesswork and cultivating a rigorous structural advantage. To anchor everything we've unpacked today, I want to leave you with Porter's own defining thought on the matter. He wrote, quote, "Competitive strategy is about being different. It means deliberately choosing a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value."
It is a profound reminder that success isn't about trying to be 10% better at the exact same things everyone else in your industry is doing. It is about having the courage to intentionally do different things entirely.
So we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over long after this audio stops. If competitive strategy is ultimately about deliberately choosing what not to do, so you can be uniquely valuable, what is the one good idea, side project, or initiative in your own life that you need to intentionally abandon right now so you avoid being stuck in the middle?